Hello, Winnemucca Wolves. Alright, so we're going to keep on with The End of the Beginning by Abby. Chapter 6, in which dragons are mentioned. It's our little picture. Edward, said Avon, do you think we'll meet up with a dragon one of these days? Our travels won't be much of an adventure if we don't. I must warn you, said Edward, nowadays dragons are rather shy. They disguise themselves to look like other creatures. You'll see, when we meet one, they deny it every time. As a rule, though, I would say that good dragons disguise themselves as nice creatures, and bad dragons as nasty ones. It's a good thing you told me that, said Avon. I've been looking for dragons. Now I'll look for something else, since I do indeed want to see one. Edward nodded. My father used to say, Edward, it's better to look for nothing and find something than to look for something and find nothing. I'll keep a sharp lookout, said Avon. A look in might be useful too, said Edward. Avon suddenly stopped. Look, he cried. That may be a dragon. Curled up by a leaf was a young sleeping mouse. He certainly doesn't look like a dragon, does he? Asked Avon. That means he probably is one, said Edward. The two friends crept cautiously toward the mouse. What a wonderful disguise, he exclaimed. I never would have guessed he was a dragon. The mouse began to stir. Now be careful, warned Edward. We don't know yet if he's a good dragon or a bad dragon. The mouse opened his eyes and saw Avon and Edward looking at him. I beg your pardon, he said. We didn't mean to wake you, said Avon. We're on our adventures, and we wanted to see a dragon. A dragon? Said the mouse shyly. I'm afraid you won't find one here. Edward nudged Avon. Avon nodded. You can't fool us, said Edward. You're a dragon. The mouse looked himself over. We won't tell anyone your secret, Avon said gently. I do hate to disappoint you, sirs, said the mouse, but really I am not a dragon. You have a tail, don't you? Asked Edward. The mouse had to admit that. There, said Avon triumphantly, dragons have tails. And 4 feet, said Edward. You do have 4 feet. Same as dragons, put in Avon. And a mouth and a nose and 2 eyes, cried Edward, all just like a dragon. No, sir, Mr. Dragon, you can fool some creatures, but you can't fool Avon and Edward. Do you know, whispered the astonished mouse, my father never told me I was a dragon. Ask your mother, suggested Edward. You have to excuse me, said the mouse, who was by then quite excited. This is all very sudden to me. I need to go home and tell my friends who I am. And off he ran. Oh dear, said Avon as the mouse scampered away. We forgot to find out if he was a good dragon or a bad dragon. He was young, said Edward, so he probably hasn't made up his mind yet. I do hope he decides to become a good dragon, said Avon. The world needs more good dragons. It would certainly be a comfort, said Edward. Chapter 7, in which a battle is fought. Edward and Avon came to a fork in their branch. It seems to me, said Edward, that you won't have had a proper series of adventures unless you've gone through thick and thin. What is thick and thin? Asked Avon. Branches, replied Edward. We've been on a thick branch. It's time we tried a thin one. So, very carefully, the 2 creatures moved out along the thin branch. Suddenly, Edward halted. Avon, look! and from the opposite end of the very branch they were traveling on, another snail was coming toward them, and what's more, there was not enough room for them to pass each other by. One of the snails would surely get knocked off. Edward was very excited. He ran up and down and around in circles. "Avon," he said, "this is the adventure you've been waiting for. That snail is coming our way. We are going his. One of you has to give way. You're going to fight a famous battle and win." "What if I lose?" asked Avon. "Avon, if you win this battle, you will be the most famous snail in the world. This is what going on adventures is all about." "The truth is, Edward, I've never fought a famous battle before. How do you do it?" "Hurry down the branch. Push him out of the way. He will push you back. Push him again. That's a battle." No matter how Avon tried to explain that snails were not pushy creatures, Edward urged him on. So, with much reluctance, Avon set off down the branch. Far from the far end, the other snail kept coming. Edward scrambled back to watch from a safe distance. The two snails moved along the long branch a little bit at a time. "Faster, faster!" urged Edward. The two snails moved forward slowly. "Don't take so long!" cried Edward. The snails moved on, coming closer and closer. "It's been 2 hours since you began!" shouted Edward, who, in spite of himself, was becoming a little bored. "I'm going at top speed," said Avon. By lunchtime, the two snails had covered half the distance that had separated them. "Can I stop for something to eat?" No, the matter is urgent," Edward insisted. "Keep going." By 4 o'clock in the afternoon, the snails had covered 3/4 of the distance. Edward was exhausted with watching. "Can't you go any faster?" he called. "I'm running," replied Avon. By supper time, the two snails were almost close. "Remember now," said Edward from his perch, "this is a fight to the finish." He yawned. The two snails were almost touching when the sun went down. "I can't see you anymore, Avon." Sorry. "I can't see you anymore, Avon," Edward called out. "Keep me informed." When it had become completely dark, there was a long silence. "What's happening?" asked Edward. "I'm not sure," replied Avon. "I can't hear anything." "Neither can I." A few more hours passed. "Avon." "Yes, Edward." "Are you winning?" "I can't tell." In the middle of the night, Edward called out across the darkness, "How's it going?" "Pretty well." "Are you winning now?" "Won't know until daylight," Avon replied, and in the morning Edward strained to have a look. To his astonishment, the two snails had passed each other, and each was continuing on his way. Edward hurriedly caught up with Avon. "Avon, what happened? Did you win your famous battle?" Avon considered thoughtfully. "Edward," he said, "I don't know. It all happened so quickly." There's the other snail going away. All right, you guys, I hope you enjoyed that. Join us next time for the next part of The End of the Beginning. All right, we'll talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.